Good day to you. God bless you. Say, welcome to the Shepherd's Chapel. Welcome to this family Bible study hour. Our Father's Word, book of Genesis, in the beginning. It is so important that you understand the beginning, because that's also how it's going to end. As it was in the beginning, so shall it be at the end. There are so many prophecies. There are so many, as you're going to find before we finish this, especially the 49th chapter. And it is fantastic as our Father leads the family through which Christ shall come and bring salvation to all nations, make it available. So having said that, chapter 32, we're at verse 1, and it reads, with Laban and Jacob having made peace, and now he's on his road back home to his father. Chapter 32, verse 1, and Jacob went on his way, and the angels of God met him. They were with him. This is the same area whereby the Jacob's ladder was seen, if you remember, at Bethel. Okay, so this letting him know certainly that God is with him. Verse 2, and when Jacob saw them, he said, this is God's host, and he called the name of that place Mahanaim, which is to say the two hosts, okay, the two camps. Verse 3. And Jacob sent messengers before him to Esau his brother unto the land of Seir, Harry, the country of Edom, which means red, after that he was on his way. There are some things that give me a little bit of a problem. Jacob knows that God is with him. Of course, I guess the love of a brother when he knows there could be bloodshed. We cannot say, certainly because he sends people to soften the meaning and so forth, that he's a coward, because Jacob was not a coward, never once can you say that. As a matter of fact, in this chapter, he will even struggle or compete with God himself. So, but in meeting his brother, you would think that he overplayed, knowing God was with him, the meeting of being, again, I'm trying to avoid the terminology of saying he was afraid. And maybe he was a little bit, I don't know. But each must make our own mind up, his actions as he goes to meet Esau, who you know has said, I'm going to kill him. All right? Verse 4, and he commanded them, saying, this is Jacob talking to his people, saying, thus shall ye speak unto my lord Esau. Thy servant Jacob said thus, I have sojourned with Laban and stayed there until now. Well, in the first place, Jacob wasn't his servant. So he's being a little bit over anxious here. In my mind he is. Verse 5, and I have oxen and asses, flocks, men servants, women servants, and I have sent to tell my Lord that I may find grace in thy sight. In other words, I'm rich now, I'm coming, and I want to find grace in thy sight. That's kind of a peace gesture that I don't want a war. I want to find grace, which is to say love in thy sight. Verse 6, and the messengers returned to Jacob, saying, we came to thy brother Esau, and also he cometh to meet thee, and 400 men with him. Uh-oh. I mean, 400 men? That's an army. Certainly Jacob didn't have 400 with him to put on any war or fight. So that would be reason enough. I mean, what were they coming for? To greet, to help, or to war? It isn't written, all right? They're possibly for conflict. Well, I'm sure it would cause one a little consternation. Verse 7, then Jacob was greatly afraid and distressed, and he divided the people that was with him, and the flocks and herds and the camels, into two bands. Now listen to this, and you can see a little bit of uneasiness, to say the least. Verse 8, and he said, if Esau come to the one company and smite it, then the other company which is left shall escape. We will run. Okay. That's not really like Jacob. He would always stand against an enemy, but here this is dealing with his own brother. It does make a difference. Verse 9. And Jacob said, O God of my father Abraham, this is the time to pray, all right. And God of my father Isaac, the Lord which saith unto me, return into thy country, and to thy kindred, and I will deal with thee. In other words, you're the one that told me to come here, and what he's reaching out, he's saying, God, I'm in just a little bit of straits here. Got a little bit of pressure on me here. We got 400 riding with my brother. Verse 10, I am not worthy of the least of all the mercies and of all the truth which thou hast showed unto thy servant. For with my staff I passed over this Jordan, and now am I become two bands. I've got my little flock split up here. Verse 11, deliver me, I pray thee. That's save us. I pray thee from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau, for I fear him, lest he will come and smite me and the mother with the children. Could he be anxious because of Rachel, because of Leah, because of his children? Of course he would be. And he knew the threats that his brother had made. And naturally, it would be a little discerning to know that the brother was riding with 400 men coming to meet him. What could that mean? I'm kind of leaving this to everyone. You make your own mind up. I do not like to judge a man, even Jacob, and it would seem, though, that inasmuch as God ordered him and two angels met him on the way, that he would know God was right there. He was in charge, and inasmuch as God told him to go, he wouldn't tell him to go to his death necessarily. So is he showing lack of faith? Well, I suppose if we were to learn a lesson from it, we should learn how easy it is to let doubt slip in if you're not careful with your faith in Almighty God. That old doubt can cost a great deal to those that serve God if you allow it to eat at you. And it would seem that because of his children, because of his wives, and because of the fact that it was his brother, that bloodshed was possible, that he could have many emotions going on at this time, even knowing that God was with him. You just kind of have to put yourself in that place and let all those things touch you, or figure them, contemplate, take them into consideration, and you decide. Verse 12. And thou saidest, this is, God, you've told me, I will surely do thee good and make thy seed as the sand of the sea, which cannot be numbered for multitude. You've told me, and here we kind of get a little look. He's concerned about his offspring, and for one part. And certainly the offspring here, he's got them all with him, the little, the weak, the mothers, the family. And he continued, hey, this is the time to pray. Anytime you have doubt slipped in and so forth, that's the time to really pray to your Father. 13. And he lodged there that same night, and took of that which came to his hand a present for Esau his brother. Let's butter him up a little bit. He's thinking all this through, and in case you hear a little rumble in the background, we're having kind of a thunderstorm in the background. Not to worry. That's just the Father rumbles occasionally through nature. 14. 200 she-goats, setting him up a little present here. 200 she-goats and 20 he-goats. 200 ewes and 20 rams. Pretty good present, huh? What? Not yet. Even. 15. 30 milk camels, which with their colts, 40 kine, that's cows, and 10 bulls, 20 she-ashes, and 10 foals. And that's talk about money and gifts. That's a pretty good gift. 16. And he delivered them into the hand of his servants. Every drove by themselves, and said unto his servants, Pass over before me, and put a space betwixt drove and drove. In other words, don't you just move up there and give him the whole thing all in one wad. Kind of give him part of it, and that'll please him a little bit maybe, and then when you load more up on him, more will come to him, and maybe he'll be softened up and be glad to see me, okay, and my family. 17. And he commanded the foremost, saying, when Esau my brother meeteth thee, and asketh thee, saying, whose art thou, and whither goest thou, and whose are these before thee? When he asked those questions, 18, then shalt thou say, they be thy servant Jacob's. Again, he was not Esau's servant, but he's really humbling himself. It is a present sent unto my Lord, kind of like master, my Lord Esau, and behold, also he is behind us. He's coming up. He's going to meet you before too long. He's softening him up or taking no chances. Again, I think we kind of learn a great deal when he prays to the Father and said, you promised me the offspring would be as numerous as the sands of the sea. He is concerned for his family, the little ones. 19, you never took little ones into battle, okay? And he's opening himself up to that possibility with 400 men pressing them. 19. And so commanded he the second and the third and all that followed the drove, saying, on this manner shall you speak unto Esau when you find him. Okay, 20. And say ye moreover, behold, thy servant Jacob is behind us, for he said, I will appease him with the present that goeth before me, and afterward I will see his face, peradventure he will accept of me. And again, I want to emphasize, there's one thing for certain. Jacob is not a coward, okay? Never will you find him as being a coward. So I have to say, I feel that the fear is in large part to do with his family that is with him. And I think he does want peace with his brother. There are so many emotions that play in this equation from all sides that, again, just leave it in your hands to decide. But be careful how you judge Jacob. He's caring for his family. 21. Even his brother he's thinking about. 21. So went the present over before him, and himself lodged that night in the company. In other words, he's holding back to give it a little time. Let that soak in, the gift and so forth. 22. And he rose up that night and took his 2 wives and his 2 women servants and his 11 sons, and passed over the ford Jabbok, and he's now moving on over. Verse 23, and he took them and sent them over the brook, and sent over that he had, and they crossed over. 24, and Jacob was left alone, and there wrestled a man with him until the breaking of the day. Now, naturally, in Hosea chapter 12, verses 4 and 5, we know this is God that wrestled with him. So that's why you cannot call Jacob a coward. All night, he didn't give up. This is why he was called contender or heel grabber. He was stubborn. And he did not give up. What God is in the process of doing here is changing his name. From this contender or fighter or heel grabber, he's going to change his name to Israel, okay? Which after that he would be called Israel. So our Father has put him through a great deal, and is he? A lot of people say, well, is he testing him? Of course he is. And we find he's still got, even though he's there and there he's alone, he doesn't give up easy. He still contends. He doesn't want to lose a battle. Verse 25 as we continue. And when he saw that he prevailed not against him, he couldn't whip him, he touched, this is God, he could have whipped him at any time, but what God did, he touched the hollow of his thigh, and the hollow of Jacob's thigh was out of joint as he wrestled with him. Probably the fourth lumbar or the sciatic nerve that runs down his leg in the joint. He touched him there, and it put Jacob in a heap of hurt. This is to show you that the angel of God could handle the flesh body with no problem. He was just testing him. And this had gone on, and it's almost daylight, and the angel of God wants it over with. So this will end it, 26. And he said, let me go, for the day breaketh. And Jacob, and he said, I will not let thee go except thou bless me. This kind of lets us know Jacob knew who he was contending with. But his old name, Contender, just stood up and passed the test, okay? Verse 27. And he said unto him, what is thy name? And he said, Jacob. That's Contender, heel grabber, supplanter. I mean, you name it. He was always reaching and grabbing and planning how to gain more and more and more. Okay. Verse 28, and he said, this would be our father, thy name shall be called no more Jacob, no more Contender, no more heel grabber, but Israel. For as a prince hast thou power with God and with men, and has prevailed. 29, and Jacob asked him and said, tell me, I pray thee, thy name. And he said, wherefore is it that thou dost ask after my name? And he blessed him there, and he left. Now, anytime, many people say, well, this should be translated in Israel means the prince that prevailed with God. He didn't prevail. Okay. Anytime that God's name is used like Israel, E-L or Y-A-Y-H on a name, let's take Daniel, God judges. The verb is always that it is God that acts. Okay. Take Yahweh Jireh, Father that supplies, that furnishes. The verb within the name of El or Yah, it is always God that that performs the action, whatever it is the name may translate. So I do not like to translate this, the prince whom prevailed with God, because that would go contrary to that. I feel it is that God commands. This is the prince in which God commands or has blessed, because the action is always on the part of our Father. So Israel, our Father does command, our Father does bless, and this is the prince, Jacob, through which the Prince of Princes would come, which is to say, the Messiah, Almighty God. Okay, now continue verse 30. And it reads, and Jacob called the name of the place Peniel. That's the face of El. Okay. For I have seen God face to face, and my life is preserved. I didn't die. Well, he saw the angel of the Lord. He didn't see the Lord. Okay. There is a difference, and if you don't quite understand that, put it on the shelf. My soul is preserved. His soul was blessed because God kind of checked him out a little bit, I think. Now, we could say a lot about this. Did God think maybe Jacob was showing a little weakness in this approach to Esau? Is this why God contended with him? Or was it time for, inasmuch as 11 of the patriarchs was born and the 12th was on his way, which would make up the nation Israel, the name change came. I don't know, but it's interesting that it happened right at this point. And it certainly lets us know Jacob was a man, and he is now Israel. Okay, continuing with verse 31. Is that the next verse? Yes. And as he passed over Penuel, the sun rose upon him, and he halted upon his thigh. He was limping bad. Okay. It's a little token to remember me by. 32. Therefore the children of Israel eat not of the sinew which shrank, which is upon the hollow of the thigh unto this day, because he touched the hollow of Jacob's thigh in the sinew that shrank. And so it is. So when, with his, was the socket out? Well, not totally. It couldn't have been. I still think it was the fourth lumbar affecting the sciatic, which takes it right on down the leg, and I guarantee you it will cause a limp. If your hip joint is out of place, you're not going to be halting, which is to say limp. You're not going anywhere. Okay, you're not going to stand on that leg. But anyway, with that, God wished, what was God's purpose? Changing his name. Bringing this blessing, establishing the nation Israel. For what purpose? Whereby Christ, as it was promised to the seed, to these children, that though Christ would come through them, that all nations, all children would be blessed because of this Messiah that would come from this family. That's why God protects this family. That's why God watches after this family, just as to this day he watches over a family that serves him, that brings him into the equation of their daily life. God is going to take care of them. Well, does that mean life is going to be like a rose garden? God doesn't appreciate hothouse lilies, and God doesn't play favorites. If you ever think God's going to play you as a favorite, you're kidding yourself. He said, "Here, little Jacob, let me set you up on my knee and just rock you a little bit here. You are so special to me." No, he fought him. He wrestled with him. He tested him. He hurt him. He found out he was made out of the right stuff. Has he ever done that with you? Well, I'm sure he hadn't wrestled with you, but sometimes he chastises us pretty good when we get out of line. Chapter 33, verse 1, let's go with it. And it reads, "And Jacob lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, Esau came, and with him 400 men. And he divided the children unto Leah, and unto Rachel, and unto the two handmaids." He's kind of showing partiality to his family here. I don't particularly care for this, but this is what he did too. "And he put the handmaids and their children foremost." If we're going to lose anybody, let's lose them first. "And Leah and her children after, and Rachel and Joseph hindermost," his favorite last. Benjamin, of course, is not born yet. 3. "And he passed over before them and bowed himself to the ground 7 times," spiritual completeness, "until he came near to his brother." I think that's overdoing it, but he did it, and he was going more than his mile, I guarantee you, okay? 4. "And Esau ran to meet him and embraced him and fell on his neck and kissed him, and they wept." It's obvious Esau has forgiven him. Just as the mother of these two was told when the struggle was in her womb, they fought with each other, that she had these two nations in her womb. And they make up of today Russia and America, the two superpowers of the end time, though one superpower is limping at this time, so to speak, my terminology. But this is what we would call perestroika. Of times gone by, when peace basically came after the Cold War. Evidently, he loved his brother. Esau grabbed him Esau loved his family. It's just that it was God that his heritage rather drifted away from. Verse 5. And he lifted up his eyes and saw the women and the children and said, Who are those with thee? And he said, The children which God hath graciously given thy servant. Remember, it had been 20 years. 20 long years since these two brothers had been together. A lot happened, okay? And a lot of children given. Verse 6. Then the handmaidens came near, they and their children, and they bowed themselves. They introduced themselves, got acquainted. 7. And Leah also with her children came near and bowed themselves. And after came Joseph near and Rachel. And they bowed themselves. Here, they made themselves acquainted to their relative. Verse 8. And he said, What meanest thou by all this drove which I met? And he said, Jacob answered Esau and said, These are to find grace in the sight of my Lord. In other words, they're gifts, they're yours. 9. And Esau said, I have enough. I've got plenty. My brother, keep that thou hast unto thyself. And he said, I don't need it. You keep it. Verse 10. Now, I'm sure Jacob by this time, he expected the very worst, and he's receiving what would be considered the very best he could from Esau, that Esau was just happy to see his brother. I would still question, why did he bring 400 men? Well, it was to help, okay? Verse 10, that is to say, to help them move in their moving. 10, and Jacob said, Nay, I pray thee, if now I have found grace in thy sight, then receive my present at my hand, for therefore I have seen thy face as though I had seen the face of God, and thou wast pleased with me. That's a plea that Esau, please take my gift. Now, it was a little bit. If you refuse a gift at this time, it was very rude. Okay, very rude. Verse 11. Take, I pray thee, my blessings that is brought to thee, because God hath dwelt graciously with me, and because I have enough. And he urged him, and he took it. Esau said, fine, we'll take it. He had enough men to take care of him and drive him back, all right, 400. Verse 12, and he said, Let us take our journey, and let us go, and I will go before thee. Esau saying, I'll provide the way, I'll take care of it, and let's go on back home. 13. And he said unto him, this is Jacob speaking to Esau, My Lord knoweth that the children are tender. They're little, they're young. And the flocks, herds with young are with me. And if men should overdrive them one day, all the flock will die. I'd just really what he's saying, I'd prefer not to have your help. In other words, he's kind of wanting to put some distance between him and that 400, would be my guess, and his property. Verse 14, Let my Lord, I pray thee, pass over before his servant, and I will lead on softly, slowly, according as the cattle that goeth before me, and the children be able to endure, until I come unto my Lord in Seir. There, that hairy or shaggy, to your place. So this would make common sense in a way. That he would, in other words, it was obvious he didn't need Esau's help, though Esau was being helpful, and I think he truly meant to help in the right way. He just kind of wanted a little distance between him and Esau for a moment to absorb all this, I suppose. 15. And Esau said, Let me now leave with thee some of the folk that are with me. And he said, What needeth it? Or I don't need them. Let me find grace in the sight of my Lord. In other words, I don't need your people. Let me find grace, or my way. Let me do it my way, and you be pleased with it. Okay. 16, so Esau returned that day on his way unto Seir. In other words, Esau gave in to Jacob on everything that Jacob practically requested. And he was gracious in that he did not refuse the gift, though he did not need it. And in wanting to help the young and the cattle with men that were familiar with the terrain, where the water was, and so on and so forth, to be able to assist in leading them on, he copped out by saying, I've got my little ones and I got young stock with me. Just let us handle our own stuff here, and you just go on and we'll come along and we'll meet you there. And sure enough, Esau gave into it. I mean, he could see that. And I think that Esau was truly proud to have seen his brother. Though many might say, well, Jacob, even after Jacob stole his birthright, Jacob did not steal his birthright. Esau sold it to him. Esau he cared nothing for his heritage. And but yet he did love his immediate family. How he loved his earthly father. As a matter of fact, he prayed to his Father instead of our Heavenly Father. And that does not please our Heavenly Father when one does that, okay? It just doesn't really fly. We'll go one more verse here. And Jacob journeyed to Sukkot. Sukkot means booth, okay? And built him an house and made booths for his cattle. Therefore, the name of the place is called Sukkot. And we will pick it up there in the next lecture. So he gets past the hurdle of coming home with God ordering him to make the trip. He still has all this anxiety on the road, and, rightfully so. Let's face it, if you have a messenger that comes back and say, hey, he's here all right, but he's not alone. He's got 400 horsemen with him. That's quite a cavalry. Okay. And so it all worked out well. Do you know, when God tells you to do a thing, and God is with you, regardless of how anxious it may look, it will always end well. There's no need for one to worry and waste and put stress on your life if God has led you in a thing, or you're doing a thing God's way. There may be trouble along the way, but don't worry. To worry is to doubt every promise of God when you're in His will and in His way. And when you love Him enough that you want His will rather than yours, that passes the acid test of maturity in Christianity. Do you want me to say it again? When you come to the place that you love Him enough that you want His will rather than your own, as far as His work is concerned, as far as your life is concerned. Think about it. Don't miss the next lecture. Bless your hearts. Listen a moment, won't you please?